A brilliant white light suddenly pierces the darkness like the eye of Sauron with a migraine aimed directly at my retina. For a split second, I genuinely thought it was an alien abduction. Thank you. First things first, why, in the name of all that's holy, did they need to remake a perfectly good animated movie with real actors? The original did well enough, so the obvious Hollywood logic is, let's throw a bunch of money at it, hire some actors and hope it prints more cash with less writing effort. Because nothing says creative bankruptcy quite like remaking something that worked fine the first time round. So let me start with the beginning. It's always a good place to start unless you're making a Christopher Nolan movie. We're treated to a soul-crushing 10 minutes plus, 10 bloody minutes of our wee protagonist droning on about his life story like he's applying for benefits at the job centre. This scrawny Viking runt, Hiccup, played by Mason Thames, who looks like he'd struggle to lift a haggis, never mind a sword, telling us all about his village, their fight against dragons, the losses, his peer group, more on them later. And then his dad chips in with more fucking exposition, introducing the diversity in the village and how valuable they are to the community. Although, case in point, they don't fucking do anything else in the movie. Not one fucking thing. Box ticking Vikings. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. The exposition is so heavy-handed, you think they were trying to explain quantum physics to a room full of Love Island contestants. Moving pictures is a visual medium. Show, don't tell, you lazy fucking writers. And excuse for a director, Dean DeBlois. Oh wait, he's both the writer and the director. Then we meet Astrid, played by Nico Parker. And look, she's 21, so I can say she's a bonny lass without ending up in some sort of register that would make Prince Andrew nervous. She's supposedly the only other normal kid in this village, which is setting the bar so low it's practically underground. The chemistry between these two actors has all the spark of a damp firework on a Scottish bonfire night. Yeah, we celebrate the time when we nearly blew up Parliament on November the 5th in this fair isle. The alleged romance unfolds with the subtlety of a Rangers-Celtic match, complete with a kind of dialogue that makes you long for the sophisticated wordplay of a Tesco self-checkout machine. And this is where things get personally offensive. Gerard Butler, a man who hails from the same Paisley that I was sitting in when watching this cinematic car crash, has decided to speak like he learned Scottish from a broken Google Translate. I'm watching this in a showcase cinema literally down the road from where the man grew up, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that nobody in Paisley has ever spoken like that unless they've suffered significant head trauma. It's this bastardised mid-Atlantic nonsense that sounds like Sean Connery gargling Iron Brew while doing a bad impression of groundskeeper Willie. The man's accent wanders around more than a drunk tourist in Edinburgh during the festival. Pick a bloody side of the world, Gerard, and come ashore there. Speaking of casting disasters, I've got Nick Frost playing the half-amputated trainer of the young Vikings, and Christ, what a waste of talent. The man who gave us brilliant comedy in Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz is reduced to stumping around on a prosthetic fake leg, delivering lines that wouldn't get a laugh at a funeral director's convention. Frost looks genuinely embarrassed to be there. You can practically see him calculating his mortgage payments behind his eyes. The physical comedy that should be his forte is completely wasted on a character written with all the depth of a puddle. It's like watching a master chef being forced to cook with a microwave and a kettle. 20 minutes in, just as I'm settled into my overpriced De Soto's gelato and accepting my fate, the cinema decides to remind me why going to the pictures. That's what we call going to the cinema in Scotland, going to the pictures. And why it is often worse than staying home with your local pirate. A brilliant white light suddenly pierces the darkness like the eye of Sauron with a migraine aimed directly at my retina. For a split second, I genuinely thought it was an alien abduction. Thank you. But no, it would have been more entertaining than what I was watching. Either that, or it was the police, HMRC or MI5 had finally tracked me down for that time I claimed my dog as a dependent. It bloody is though. But no, it was some poor souls in wheelchairs being dumped next to us by their carers, followed immediately by cinema staff, asking us to move from our booked seats. Booked seats, mind you, paid for in advance. but apparently Showcase Cinema thinks musical chairs as part of the viewing experience. Bad form, lads. Absolutely shocking customer service. It would make Ryanair blush. Did I mention? 20 minutes into the movie. Maybe there should be a cut-off for entry. Speaking of retards, let's talk about the supposed Viking village. I'm starting to suspect there's been some serious inbreeding going on because the supporting cast of trainee Vikings appears to be operating with a collective IQ that wouldn't trouble double digits. Half of them are clearly somewhere on the spectrum, and the other half have apparently modelled their physique on baby hippos. The craft services table must have been working overtime because some of these actors look like they've never met a pie they didn't like. I've seen more athletic prowess at a Comic-Con mobility scooter convention. I'm looking at you, Gillian Dennison and Bronwyn James, and yeah, I can see it, because I'm a fat bastard too. The village itself makes no bloody sense either. They're supposedly Vikings, you know. The seafaring raiders who terrorised Europe. They can't figure out how to deal with dragons. These are the people who sailed to America before it was cool. And they're stumped by flying lizards? My gran could have sorted that out with a rolled up newspaper and some choice Ayrshire profanity. And here's something that's been nagging at me throughout the whole debacle, the bloody music. Every time you show those sweeping drone shots of the mountains, and there's enough of them to make you think you're watching a tourism advert, the score goes full Scottishy and Celtic majesty. Where exactly are these Vikings supposed to be from? Because last I checked, Vikings came from Scandinavia, not the Scottish Highlands. Did someone in the music department get confused and think they were scoring Braveheart 2 Dragon Edition? The soaring tartan-tinged orchestral nonsense makes about as much sense as putting a didgeridoo in a spaghetti western. The first act drags like a wounded dragon. See what I did there. Crawling along at the pace of a Scottish summer, brief and disappointing. We're subjected to endless training montages that make Rocky look like a masterclass in narrative efficiency. Every scene feels like it's been stretched thinner than the plot credibility, and the actors look about as enthusiastic as someone doing their tax returns. The second act picks up slightly, but only in the way that getting kicked in the shin is an improvement over being kicked in the balls. There's some attempt at character development, but it's about as deep as a puddle in the Sahara and twice as dry. Credit where it's due though, and it pains me to give any, but the third act actually starts to resemble something approaching entertainment. The action sequences have some genuine excitement. CGI dragons come into their own, and for brief moments you can always forget you're watching a film that was clearly designed by committee and focus grouped to death. The dragon sequences are admittedly spectacular, with flying choreography that would make the Red Arrows jealous. When the film finally stops talking and starts showing, it reveals glimpses of what it could have been if someone had shown some bloody courage in the editing room and told the actors to actually try acting. But then we get to the editing, and Christ on a bike, what were they thinking? It's more drawn out than a divorce settlement and twice as painful. The emotional beats are telegraphed so obviously you could spot them from orbit, and the resolution is so saccharine it could put a diabetic into a coma. They pile on the sentiment like they're building a particularly unstable Jenga tower, each emotional moment more forced than the last. The actors are clearly struggling with dialogue that sounds like it was written by someone who learned English from greeting cards.
N-A-T-U-R-E Nature F-U-T-U-R-E Future Nature Future.
The cinematography itself is competent enough, although it has that glossy corporate sheen that screams designed by algorithm. Everything's just too clean, too perfect, like a world scrubbed of any genuine character or grit. Real Vikings were dirty, brutal, and probably smelled like a fishmonger's bin in August. But these ones look like they've stepped out of an IKEA catalogue. Not sponsored, but open to it. Shameless self-promotion there. The performances range from adequate to Gerard Butler's accent. The supporting cast does their best with dialogue that was clearly written by people who think Vikings said thee and thou every other sentence, but you can see the life draining from their eyes with every line reading. Look, I've sat through worse films, though right now it's a struggle to remember what. And How to Train Your Dragon 2025 isn't offensively terrible. In fact, it's a pretty much shot-for-shot remake of the original cartoon, and that again brings us back to why. It's just aggressively mediocre. It's a cinematic equivalent of plain porridge. It'll fill you up, but you'll spend the entire time wishing you'd chosen something with actual flavour. Maybe I'm just too old and cynical for this kind of mindless entertainment. The real tragedy, though, is watching talented actors like Nick Frost being wasted on material that wouldn't challenge a community theatre group. It's like using a Ferrari to deliver newspapers. Technically it'll do it, but what's the bloody point? If you're a parent desperately seeking 2 hours apiece, this'll do the job. Your kids will be sufficiently distracted by the pretty CGI dragons while you contemplate life choices that led you to Paisley Cinema on a Wednesday afternoon. In my case, it was reduced ticket prices. Yeah, I'm tight. For everyone else, save your money and watch literally everything else. Paint drying has more narrative surprises, and sometimes it doesn't insult your intelligence with fake Scottish accents and exposition dumps that would make George Lucas cringe. So like a lukewarm cup of tea, I'm going to give it 5 out of 10. It's not completely undrinkable, but you'll be left wondering why they bothered when the original was perfectly fine. As to the showcase Cinema Paisley, play the game, guys. Sort out the seating policies. Maybe think about putting a moratorium on new people coming in, 20 minutes into an hour and a half long movie. I didn't pay premium prices to play musical chairs in the dark. Oh wait, I didn't pay premium prices. I'm great.
A grumpy Scot with a pint in hand, ripping through films like a one-man band. Snarky cinema where the burns are hot, honest reviews you'll never forgot. Oh hey oh, aye, let the truth be told. No sugar here, it's biting and bold. With smirk and a scowl and a hearty laugh, the grumpy Scot is here to riff your craft. Remakes to sequels gone wrong, he'll tear them apart all video long. But if it's a gem, he'll tip his hat. Rare moments when praise comes from this cat. From cringe remakes to sequels gone wrong, he'll tear them apart all video long. But if it's a gem, he'll tip his hat. Rare moments when praise comes from this cat. Snark so sharp it'll cut through steel. Honesty that you can taste and feel. No fluff, no fuss, it's a Scottish creed. For brutal truth, the world does plead. Oh hey oh, aye, let the truth be told. No sugar here, it's biting and bold. With a smirk and a scowl and a hearty laugh, the grumpy Scot is here to riff your craft. So grab your popcorn and duck for cover. It's cinema chats with a twist to discover. Snarky Scot with reviews that sting, a brutally honest movie rating king.